Hey everyone, my name's Steve. I don't know if you saw this in the Grace Equip or if you were invited, one-on-one, but what we're going to do tonight is very basic overview of some stage equipment, the way to hook it up, and then the basics of sound. So we're going to do that. Before we do, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to talk with these folks, and I just pray that you'll give me the words to say, Lord. Help questions come up, Lord, so that we can learn, and just guide us through this evening. In your name, amen. Yeah, we'll do questions and answers at the end, but by all means, if I'm running too fast or you have a question about what we're working on, then feel free to just come put your hand up or shout it out. So we're kind of a small group here, which is kind of nice. So sound systems, they come in different varieties, Who has an analog board? Who has a digital board?
Tell me the difference.
What's your digital? Analog?
The difference.
Okay, the difference is usually they're bigger and they have a knob for every channel versus a digital console has less knobs and sliders, and you have to kind of do layers. So does that help out?
We're analog or digital.
Digital? All right, cool. Digital. All right, cool. So sound systems. These pictures aren't as good as I would like because the bigger you make them, the uglier they get. But who has driven one of these? Or something similar? Yeah, I still have one. I had one when my daughter was in high school, and it was a brown Celebrity. It had rust, and she called it the rolling turd, right? Sound systems, basic sound systems are not necessarily a turd, but they get the job done, right? Like this would get you from point A to point B, right? So then you kind of take your system and you step up. Minivan people, we got you out here? Yeah? So a little nicer, a little more creature comfort, got the cup holders and stuff. And then, when you really, build the system, then that might be your dream system. I'm a truck guy, but I can appreciate a Corvette anyway. So whatever level your sound system is, or whatever level you want your sound system to go to, they all have a purpose, and one doesn't have to match the other. So if you have a smaller system in a smaller room and it's doing the job, then stay with it. If you have a small one but you need the bigger one, you need the Corvette, then you got to think about upgrading. If you have one that's not reliable, it kind of turns into that first picture. So best practices for turning on sound systems, let's kind of start there. For digital or analog, you want to turn everything off. You guys know what front of house is? FOH, okay? That's where you mix from. You want to turn everything on there first, no matter what kind of system you have. And then you're going to go to your amplifiers, or in this case, because we have a digital board, the brain, if you will. The mixing console in a digital world is nothing more than the mouse you use at your computer. There's a brain hooked to it somewhere, in this case, up on stage. That's where all the components are for that. So keep that in mind. Signal paths. You guys know signal path basically starts with, let's just do a vocalist, starts with a person with a mic and goes through, we'll get to these cables, but it goes through a cable and then into the sound system to the board. So we'll get to some show and tell there. But as far as your speakers and stuff go, you're always going to be at the board is where you're going to receive the sound. And we'll go back to the board back there, and I'll kind of introduce you to some of the things back there. I don't know if the sound guy or the audio video guy will appreciate me, but we are going to jump back where Isaac's at for a little bit. So, but yeah, so it always starts with the soundboard on the incoming signals, and then that pushes usually to an amplifier or a powered system. So that's pretty much signal path. There's a lot of ins and outs, but that's pretty much the basics. So I included in your handout kind of the spreadsheet. This is kind of some things. Welcome. If you were going to build a sound system, this would be a nice medium system. Sound system's expensive, but this kind of just gives you an idea for that. So, all right, let's talk gear, because I want you guys to be familiar with where it all starts. Okay, let's go to vocals, right? So this is a Shure SM58. I'm going to just pass it around. That is a rock star of a microphone, and primarily for vocals, $100 or so. If you need a switch because you're at the mic and you want to cut it off but you don't have a soundboard, about $10 more. I swear you can hammer nails with those. I had them in my business for so many years, and I was always grateful that the top unscrewed so I could change that. So great vocal mic. I don't know what you guys are using. Tell me, what kind of mics are you using?
Sennheiser 930.
Nice.
935.
Yep.
And I also use my favorite go-to is Electro Voice RE320.
Nice, nice. Awesome. Do you guys know what mics you're using? No?
Or could they say wireless version of that?
Yeah, so the wireless version, here's kind of the wireless version. This is a different one. I'm not even sure who makes this. I think it's Shure. Anyway, Shure Digital. So I'll pass that around for those of you that aren't familiar with it. Wireless mics are great as long as your frequencies are set, the way you want. Like one mic goes to one receiver with the antenna. Vocalists generally in a church setting do really, really well with wireless stuff. But if they don't move around a whole lot, then the wired mics are fine as well. So everybody know what this is? I guess we'll start with some of the basics. This is a boom stand. A lot of vocalists, if they're not going to hold their mic like this, but then you also have the regular stand as well. So I just didn't know if people were familiar with the basics, so I thought we'd go there. So anyway, so the way sound travels is I'm going to use the wireless mic, and I'm talking into it, and in this case it's going to go to the receiver and then into the soundboard. And the wired mic is going to do the same thing. When it gets to the soundboard, you're going to work on your gain as your very first thing, and we'll look at that back at the board when we get back there. So, am I going too fast? Pretty good? All right. SM57, a little bit cheaper as far as a mic goes for instruments, like for guitar amps. You can put two of them in a piano. They do a pretty good job. Another Rockstar mic that'll last you for years to come. And I will give you some places to go to buy gear. So I'll kind of, if you don't know, I'll let you know on those things. So those are my basic microphones that I turned to. I did sell my business in 23, so I kept enough to teach because I teach audio in the spring, and then sometimes I teach lighting in the fall if they need me to, and I teach a couple tech seminary classes, which would be great. Yeah, Freddie?
So the 57.
Yeah.
I know these are indestructible.
Mm-hmm. They can be.
Would you say that 57 is, the way you described it, would you say that's something that's capable of receiving high impact kind of volume?
Yeah.
In other words, like if you were putting it on a drum set or a cymbal.
They're great on snares.
But you've also, sometimes you still see them though in speaking situations.
You can use it.
Advice about that?
It's just, I think it's a little more muffled than the SM58. The SM58 is designed, the first one we passed around, is designed for vocals. And so it picks up a little more of the highs. But you can use it in a speaking situation. I think you just have to adjust your EQ on your board because it's going to be just a little more down-toned.
Is that the 57, is that a unidirectional?
Yeah, it is. So what he means by unidirectional is basically it picks up the sound from the front. Some mics can do 3 sides, some mics do, like studio mics, do all the way around. But yeah, that's just straight from the front. And the SM58's like that too, which makes it great. Anybody using stage wedges for singers to like hear it? Yeah. So the SM58's great for you because it's designed for that. So you have a couple of wedges at the singer, and then the 58 doesn't really pick up a lot of sound on the outside. It certainly can. If you put too much of the singer into the wedge, that's usually going to be, he's laughing, you've heard it, right? And so I teach reduction in that particular case. So you might be reducing the EQ, certain frequency there, but that's generally a volume situation, and a lot of times the placebo effect does work in any situation. And I'll tell you a quick story, but if your vocalist says, hey, can I have more of me? And you're at your threshold limit, just reach down on the board, touch it. You didn't move anything, but it's sound guy, you're not lying, you're just trying to, put the sound together. I actually had one when WCC, Warsaw Community Church, here in Warsaw, obviously. We met in McLean for a while, and we did like 5 services a weekend. And then we moved over to Lakeview, which is a middle school. and then they eventually built the building. But at Lakeview, we brought in all of our own sound because we could trust what we had. They had some stuff there, but we just weren't sure that it was reliable every week. So one of the things we would do is we would roll in a big analog console, with knobs and faders for every channel. And one week, this little old lady come up to me, and I thought, okay, it's too loud or not loud enough. And she's got her shawl on, and she says, "Do you work here?" I think she called me Sonny, but let's go there and say that she did, okay? I said, "Well, I don't, but what do you need?" They come to the sound guy because they want stuff. She says, "It's always so cold at my seat." I said, "Where do you sit?" And she showed me, and I turned a knob, and she came back after church and said the cooling was so much less, and she was so happy. So always remember the placebo effect. I don't feel that it's lying because you're helping people, but there's some other mics that I didn't keep. Let's take a look at this one. My computer's running a little slow tonight. I'm not sure why, but this is an SM81. Okay, we'll go through the sheet there, or you can kind of take notes as we go through it. Maybe what I should do is back up and let's just go through the order instead of just jumping around so much. All right, so on your sheet there you have the PCDI. That's the first one. Now, not everybody uses these. I find these to be very helpful when you're using a laptop because you can get rid of the hum that's in it. And you basically take your computer cable, you plug into one side, and it transforms it into a regular XLR. This particular one does stereo. So that's a PCDI. You can pass that around.
What does this go for approximately?
I think that one's under $200. So worth every penny.
And you're taking a...
XLR to like a...
Yeah, so for instance, let's say, say you're hooking up your sound system, and I'll pass this around. So this end's going to go into your computer. Mm-hmm. And one thing to always remember when you have the male end here and it has two black circles around it, that's stereo. Mm-hmm. So in this case, we're going to take stereo, one wrap and it's mono, okay? We're going to take stereo and we're going to break it out into two channels. So what I would do is go to the computer. We'll come to the PCDI. Thank you, Freddie. I would jump the stereo ones in there. Okay, now we're in here. Now we've taken sound from the computer right here into the PCDI. And then you take a standard microphone cable, which is called XLR. I'm sure it stands for something, but believe it or not, I can't remember. We'll just call it XLR. And then you plug that in just like a microphone. And you would do two of them if you want to keep it stereo, and then you're right into your mixer or your brain or whatever. Just pass that whole thing around there if people want to see how we do it. Other questions like that, stop and ask me, like, how do you hook that up or why do you use that? We'll try to go through them.
And you say that this is, the use case of this is that you were trying to...
reduce the hum.
In like the electronic noise?
Yeah, because power puts out a 60 hertz cycle. Mm-hmm. And so when you get the hums and stuff, especially it seems like from Mac computers over the years, that's what I've had. On this, I should have told you that, but there's a ground lift on each channel. And generally when you lift the ground, it takes that hum away. Plus it's a great way to get your phone or your computer or your iPad. They all use the same connection there. So it's just very versatile for that. But the SM58 and the SM57 and then this guy, you can see how this guy is really, really used, even rattles a little bit. This is your basic DI. Okay, DI stands for direct box. Don't tell me, I don't know why it's not DB. I guess that's the sound level, but DI. These are about $40. And they do the same thing. You can use them for your computer. They don't work as well, but they do have a ground lift on them. These are great for keyboards, electric guitars, anything that uses a 1/4-inch male cable. You guys all know male end, female end. Sometimes in college when I teach this, I hear snickers. I'm like, this is an industry standard, okay? Stay with me, would you? So you take your instrument cable and you plug into one side. There's a little transformer inside here, converts it over to XLR. Again, you've got the ground lift, which will help you with a lot of hums. It's not magic. They make a hum eliminator that will do even more, but that's a whole different thing. If you have a lot of hums in your sound system, maybe your cables are too close to the electrical or your sound is on lighting and you hear that vroom, vroom, vroom. If you bring up your lights, then you got to kind of move where your power comes from. But this is a workhorse, yeah.
So, question about this, when you're hooking this in up to go into.
Sorry, camera guy. I guess I am walking a little bit.
Sorry, when you're hooking this up, where is this between the mixer board and say your computer?
Okay, so right
Is this-
here,
Is this going out of the?
you hold that.
Yep.
So here's your computer. We're just going to
Yep.
pretend this is your computer. You're going to plug your computer in,
Right.
and then it's going to pass through here,
And then into the.
and then into the XLR, which that is generally the input for microphones and stuff on the back of the console. We'll take a look at that back there.
You wouldn't take it into the mix, where's the mixer?
You can take it right into the mixer. Yep.
Oh, this can go into the mixer?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right, that was my question.
Yep, and pass that around. You bet. Yeah, stop me with questions. But yeah, this direct box, especially for its price, and the first two mics, the 58 and 57, don't leave home without it. I mean, those are the rock star pieces that I've used for 35 years. So, any questions on those?
That is considered an output from your computer, right?
It's
going
an output from the computer, but it's going input
Into the
to the board. Yep.
board.
Yeah, you
So
always
it's an
have.
audio source.
Yeah, it's an audio source. Yeah, thank you. I'll just set it up here if you want to look at it later. Yeah, it's the same as the microphone. Borrow the XLR cable from here. So you have the female end of the mic cable. You guys are all aware of that. And then you got the male end. So the female end goes into your microphone. I don't care what brand of microphone you have, that's how it's going to connect. Okay? And then this goes into either your board, or if you guys know what stage pockets are? Goes into your stage pocket, say channel 3. And then if your board is wired correctly, be channel 3 back at your board. Or it can go right into the board if you're close enough. But that's how any microphone that's wired is going to connect. I've never seen one that didn't. Probably British or something. They have something better. I don't know. Wireless mics are great, but they're pricey. And you really need to know that you get what you pay for. So if you go really cheap on your wireless, I would stick with wired if you're not ready to get a good one. Like a good Shure microphone or a Sennheiser. So, but you do get what you pay for. So, and again, the other one you're passing around is simply your guitar, your keyboard goes into one side, and then pretend that's a microphone. You got the female XLR goes into that, and then you're right into your board. So, cool. I'll leave these up here, and if you want to look at them afterwards.
You consider the PCDI a higher end device than
Totally,
the smaller one,
totally, yep.
Because it has two separate.
But I would only use the PCDI for my computer because of its price point. It's 3 times the price of the blue and black one there. So this is what you'll always find on stage, except in one situation, and we'll get to that. But this, for 40, 50 bucks, whatever they're up to these days, these are great to have. If you have any instruments, you pretty much need them. There are some keyboards that have XLR out, and then you just have that cable, and then it goes into the board, but then you don't get the ground lift. So this is worth its money in the ground lift. So I would use that pretty much at my computer, and it does what it says it'll do. And then this is great just up on the stage. So I think at one point I had a dozen of them, and none of them broke. They're great. If you ever open one up, it's pretty simple inside. So sounds like you have opened one up.
No.
No? The biggest thing with all the cabling in the direct boxes, everything has solder joints. One microphone cable, okay, well, we'll start with the mic. This has 3 solder connections when you loosen this little screw and it pops out because it's got 3 pins, XLR. This has 6 solder joints, 3 on each end. So think about that. Just getting a microphone into your soundboard, you've got 6 plus 3, you've got 9 solder joints that have to stay good. So treat your equipment well, but buy the good stuff. I buy the brand name cables and then the brand name microphones. I just think they're built better. So I'm a Shure guy. Sennheiser, great stuff as well. So, all right. So let's see. The next direct box I didn't keep because the guy that bought everything really, really wanted it. This is an active DI. Okay, this takes phantom power, they call it, from your mixer, okay? Not going to shock anybody, but it's the same concept for a bass guitar. That's where I would use that direct box, or any active direct box. Guitar in, XLR out. It just, on the other side, it just warms the sound because it's active. Anybody using an active DI for any of their bass guitars? You're shaking your head, yeah. You don't have to. Your bass guitar will go into that. I try to get all amps off stage. Either A, don't use them, because today, guitar pedals are any profiling you want from a guitar pedal. If you insist on using an amp, I put it backstage. I put an SM57 in front of it, actually off to the side. I'll tell you about that in a second. I don't like amps on stage because if they keep turning them up, it bleeds into the audience. So any amps, try to get them off stage, try to get them not to use them at all. So some guys, that are dragging the Marshall amps around, you're not going to get them to do that. But at Granger Community Church, where I go right now, no amps on stage. One guy has to have an amp, and it is backstage in a closet with soundproofing in it. And it sounds awesome, and then he gets the tone that he wants, So that's the best use for an active DI. You don't have to have it, but if you get it, that's probably another $200 price point. It's not something you have to have. I'm just kind of presenting options so you guys know what's out there, know what I have used. And then we talked about our friend, the 58, great workhorse. Let's talk about, we talked about the 57. Let's talk about some cabling options, okay? So this is a double male, but you can see this one's bigger than this one, okay? And these are all on your sheet. So you can look at your sheets and take notes and that if you want me to back up. But this end will go into a computer, okay? Basic microphone. What did I say about the one black ring?
It's mono.
It's mono. So you're going to get a mono sound out. When does that matter? If somebody, like the gentleman back there that's filming this, has done a video in true stereo, voices can be on the left side or right side, and then all the audio over there. So know if you need a true stereo. I just use stereo all the time. This one just had a good picture online when I grabbed it. So that goes into like a direct box, and this goes into your computer. Same scenario we had with the PCDI. That's a great cable to have around. Go ahead.
Some people recommend going mono if you're using a single mic in a podcast setup. Would you agree with that?
I would,
Okay.
yeah, because you've got one sound source. You can do stereo, but then you just have two faders on the board and two of everything. If you gang them together, which basically on a digital board, you can gang it together. So when you do something to one channel, it does it to the other. But with what you're talking about, you have one source. I would just stay mono. Absolutely. Yep. That all makes sense? Do you guys get that? All right. Another great cable. I think I have one that I can pass around. I didn't get everything out because then it just looks cluttered. Let me see if I can find this one. This one is an XLR to 1/4 inch. There you hide. Okay, so it's right here. So this is great for monitor wedges if you're using them. A lot of the soundboards have outputs for like monitor wedges. So this would be the output, and yes, it's the male end. Usually on a computer, all of your inputs receive the male, and then your outputs are females to receive the male. I don't know why they do it that way. I guess you got to think about ins and outs. But then this would go to like your wedge or something. So that's a great cable to have.
What's a wedge?
Huh?
What's a wedge?
Oh, monitor wedge. I'm sorry. I think I have a picture.
I mean, a wedge, you're saying like somebody has
Like-
feedback in their ear or a speaker?
Well, a wedge is
on stage?
yeah, good question. A monitor wedge is up on stage,
Yeah.
and it points at the musicians so they can hear. So that's what I refer to on a wedge.
Ear wedge too?
You can get in your monitor, sure.
Same thing.
It does the same thing. The nice thing about the in-ears is anybody using clicks and tracks? Okay, so click and track, I actually will have an example. I don't know if I can get sound of this, but a lot of churches use a click and a track, and so in their ears only, you can't do this with a wedge on stage. They get a metronome, and then it'll say, chorus, or it'll say second verse. Like there's somebody like cueing them, to this is where we're going. I'll try and see if we can get some audio so you can actually hear that. Remind me of that before we're done. So I wish drummers could just keep a solid beat, but they've come to like really lean on the in-ear feed, the metronome. Any drummers in here? Yeah? You know how you can tell a drummer brought your pizza, right? The knock is not syncopated, right? I got a lot of drummer jokes, but we won't go there because other musicians too, like, how do you know that your drum platform is level? Have you heard this one? The drool runs out of both sides of his mouth equally. Anyway, we won't go there. I have lots of musician jokes because over the years I have dealt with great people, and then I have some of these concerts that came in that we did. Interesting people. I'll just leave it at that. Another kind of speaker connector is a speak-on connector. I have absolutely no idea why they call it that. I should have just gotten all these out. Sorry about that. But this is the speak-on connector right here. And you can see it up there. That cable has two of them. This goes in with the clip at 10 o'clock, if you think of that on a clock face dial, and then snaps. They're using them up here. The reason they're so good, they do not rattle out like a 1/4-inch cable would. So we can pass around the speak-on. That one is actually a converter to receive, like if you need to run long distances, but you don't have a long speak-on cable, but you have 1/4-inch cables. That one will work for that. So, is this helpful? Is this kind of what you guys were hoping to get? And then get on the board, show you the board a little bit. Everybody good? Good where we are? Okay.
Question about the speaker.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is an alternative to an XLR?
No, that's an alternative to like a 1/4-inch speaker cord. They both do the same thing.
To a speaker?
Yeah, when you plug in the back of the speaker, and you can come up and look when we're done. They've got them for these speakers. And the nice thing is, once you snap that in, that does not come out. Short of somebody, I guess, tripping on it, ripping it out. Then you pull the silver lever back, turn it back to 10 o'clock, and you can pull it out. But those are great, especially if you're doing, like, say, an outdoor venue, and you need to bump the sound a little bit because the wind is there, and you're doing the dunking in the pond, if you will, and you need to boost it. Well, if you have too much boost besides the feedback, it can rattle the speaker connector right out. So I like to use those. Everybody know what a snake is? Raise your hand if you know what a snake is. Okay, so for the pastor, maybe for Trent. Trent didn't raise his hand either, but let's see. So a snake is basically a bunch of microphone cables all put together in one cable. So if I'm going to go from the board back there up here, I don't want to run 27 microphone cables, right? Or 24, I guess they come in. So I'll buy a 24-channel snake, and that's what its job does. I don't have one of those. I couldn't keep that from the person from Ben Essek, if you know, you guys won't know Ben, but who bought all the gear. So, but that's a snake, pretty basic there. Let's see. This is another form of computer speaker, and I don't know why they name it what it is. It's called a banana plug, if you can believe that or not. Here we go. Here's a single one. It goes in the back of amps sometimes. Crown still puts them on, and you put your bare wire in there, and you crank it down, okay? And then this just goes into the amplifier. But they call it a banana plug. Sometimes they're individuals, and sometimes they're joined like that. So they're usually a red and a black one, so you know left speaker, right speaker. Industry doesn't use them a whole lot anymore because they're not as reliable, because you basically just have that peeled cable in there, and you're just kind of hand cranking it down. But they still exist. We talked about the wireless system. So you have the microphone that we passed around, okay? It leaves the vocal, leaves the person that's using it or the pastor, goes to a set of antennas. Somewhere is your antenna. The closer to the stage, the better, because the further you get from the antennas with the microphone, you get dropout. Everybody know kind of what dropout is? It's kind of like cell phones, if you will. Well, you don't want that. So generally what people do is they put these up on stage somewhere or right behind stage, and then the microphone only has to travel from the person to this. It doesn't have to travel 100 feet back to the soundboard. And then this will have XLRs on the back, and you just treat it like a wired microphone. Boom, you're there. So maybe the transmission goes 10 feet, but then it's cabled, say 100 feet or 50 feet or whatever you need there. If you have a small situation like this, you can put the receivers back at front of house. That's kind of nice because then you can see when people turn them on. you get an indicator. Otherwise, you're back there, saying, turn your mic on. Pastors never do that. So, over the years, I've tried to get pastors and any musicians just to leave stuff on. Like, I'll change the batteries between services if you're doing multiple services. I've got the mute button. We'll see that back there, but I just don't trust people to always turn things on. Okay, this would be a 1/4-inch cable, male on both ends. This would be your cable. I don't have one of these. This would be your cable to plug your guitar in, an acoustic guitar, anything that's got a female 1/4-inch cable. So that could be electric guitar, it could be a acoustic guitar, it could be a violin. At church this week, we visited a different church, my wife and I did. They had a live violin, which was great. Now, they were running it wirelessly, but it had an actual output rather than putting a mic over top of it that the bow could actually hit. So really any instrument is going to have an output like that. If you get in a situation where somebody comes and they have more of a classical guitar and they don't have something to plug into, just get a microphone in front of it. Ask them to be as close as they can to it. If you have one, this is a $400 mic, so that is an investment. But because it's a studio mic, whatever you put into this, you're going to get at your soundboard. It's not going to change the frequencies at all. So this is great for overhead of the cymbals of a drum. We'll get into drum miking. That's a whole different class, but we'll touch on it. Or like a violin or something. But that's just my favorite mic in the whole world. Any questions? Am I going okay? Is this helpful? Just to let you know kind of what's out there. I thought maybe the first part of the class, and we're getting there, I just go over tools of the trade, And just because I'm recommending a brand doesn't mean there's not other brands. This is just the brands that I've used for 35 years. So, anybody know what that looks like?
It's like Ethernet.
Yeah, it's an Ethernet cable. They call this connection an Ethercon because it protects the plug on who uses Ethernet cords anywhere, and the little tip is broke off, and so it won't snap in. That's why the Ethercon connectors were invented, because this is a Cat 6 cable, and it just snaps in. You will always have one of those cables, usually a long one, from the soundboard to the brain. So remember we were talking about snakes, the analog snake? In a digital system, you have one cable to get from point A to point B. Point B is where you plug everything in, it gets received back at the board, and then you have to tell each channel what you want it to do. I can show you that cable when we get back there. It's strung up here somehow. But
So you're saying that that goes what, to the sound booth, or it goes from the board to what?
a brain on stage, which we'll take a look at later. Because remember, the soundboard is nothing more than a mouse. That's it. You think, wow, $8,000 for a soundboard, which is not a lot for a digital board, but that's about what they spent on this one. That is nothing more than a mouse. The brain and everything you plug into, that's the magic. So you have to have both pieces in a digital situation. Now there are boards. I think Isaac was telling me, like the Behringer, what is it, X32 or whatever. You can plug everything into the back of the board. So that does exist, but if you want to have one cable running from point A to point B. I like this board back here when we look at it because it does have XLRs and stuff that you can plug into. So you can put microphones, back there, or your computer back there. It's got some openings for that. So that is the Ethernet cable, the PowerCon. Now this is the cable that most of your guitar players are gonna have or gonna want, made by Fender, which is a guitar maker. It's got a right angle. I like this a lot because think about it, if any guitar players? I don't have any guitar player jokes, I'm sorry. But so you got your guitar on, and let's say your input's right down here at your strap. If I put a standard instrument cable that we looked at earlier, it's going to stick out like this. What's going to happen? It's going to get broke off, or it's going to come loose. They make a right angle, like for keyboards and for situations like that where the right angle cable goes right into the guitar and it goes straight down and then wherever it's going to be plugged into. So that's another cable that's really, really useful. Keyboards and guitars mostly. So now this How many of you know what a VCR is or a tape deck? You guys, yeah, here now we're talking, right? This is a composite cable, otherwise known as an RCA. All right. Now this one has 3 on it because this probably used my VCR back in the day. But let's focus on the yellow, the red, and the white, because the yellow generally they're all the same, right? Just you got 3 colors and 3 colors. But generally, the yellow was always video. So we'll just kind of fold him down. We're not talking about that. But here's your composite input. Say if you have a CD player at front of house. Anybody running a CD player at front of house for music? Or some churches still have tape decks. But this is a composite cable or an RCA cable. And also on this PCDI, we talked about the computer cable. But it also has the component input. So you could use this, say your CD player's making electronic noise that you don't want, you could use one of these. So RCA or component, that's what they call that one. It has its place, not so much anymore. So here's our XLR cable. Again, you've got the male end, the female end. From direct boxes are great. Microphones are great. Some, like I said, some keyboards have where you just plug the XLR right into it. That's the cable you should have the most of. And you should have a bunch of different lengths. I have 3-footers, where you don't have to run too far. I think the one that I brought's a 30 or 50 foot. Color code them. So if you have somebody that is not as familiar with your cable, say, okay, the 10-foot one's got blue tape on it. The 20-foot has green, and so on and so forth. Because then you could say, okay, I'm great, you're helping. Go get me 2 of the red cables, and they can do that. So if you do have helper, I like to color code them because I'm a little bit OCD, not like officially, like I've not been tested, but I like things put back exactly how we found them. So this room tends to drive me a little bit nuts because there's a lot of hands that work in here throughout the week, and it's cluttered, and I'm okay with that. I come in before class and last night for this class and just kind of straighten things up a little bit and throw trash away and make it look presentable. Now this is not made anymore, and I don't understand why. This is also a microphone, if you can believe it. You're shaking your head, so you know what the sub kicker is, right? So this goes in front of your bass drum. It has a receiver, a port for the female XLR, and then you plug it in just like a microphone. What this always did, and so if you find one of these, get it because they don't make it anymore. You put it in front of the bass drum, and as the bass drum hits and the waves come off of it, this captures the waves. And that's a great way to mic your bass drum. Some bass drums have mics built into them. While we're talking about bass drums, let's talk about drum miking a little bit, okay? You can plug an XLR into that. You can put what they call a PZM. It's a real flat mic, pressure zone microphone. You can put that inside on a pillow. Those are some ways to mic the drums. If you don't have this, the drum, would usually have a hole in it. Stick a drum mic, again, we'll talk about that, right in the hole, and then you're still going to get some of the sound waves. But this is pretty awesome. The camera guy back there, he might know what this is. You know what this is? Kind of hard to see.
Is that like a shotgun mic?
Yep, it's a shotgun mic. A lot of times you put that on a boom if you're like interviewing some people or doing a podcast. You keep it out of frame, or if it's just audio podcast, you just set it there. But it's designed to capture a wide amount of sound, and usually it's used in video. Like he put this on me tonight, so this is my mic and it's transmitting back to him wirelessly. Even with this, I'm slightly uncomfortable. Like I'm a communication major, right? I can talk and till the cows come home. My wife would say something like that. And she was raised on a farm. But I like to be behind things. But when I teach, I'm in front of people. But this particular microphone, like I said, it clips on, and then it wirelessly goes back to a receiver that he has. And then if I'm thinking right, you've got a wired cable coming out of the receiver sitting on top of the camera, and audio goes right in the camera. So then he's not capturing a lot of the room noise. The HVAC in this room sounds like a freight train when it's on. I'm kind of glad for his sake and our sake that it's off right now. Yeah, he's giving me the thumbs up. You'll know if it comes on. But that's a way to use a wireless mic even when it doesn't look like a wireless mic. Okay, any question on the gear? I know we're flying through this, and I'll stay and answer any questions, but You guys have your sheets there with colored pictures of what goes with what, pretty much on everything that we talked about on the handouts there.
I've got
Yeah, go ahead.
a usage question.
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't want to sound critical, but there's a lot of people that are like what we might call professional, ministers.
Yeah.
Not usually musicians, but
Mm-hmm.
ministers who, you know, they fancy themselves, they speak all the time.
Right.
But they really don't know how to use a microphone.
That is correct.
And people are, you know, they can't get up on it,
Mm-hmm.
or they are, you know, critical of the sound guy.
Yeah.
Because everything's constantly squeaking, giving feedback.
Right.
Because they have to amp the thing up so high
Mm-hmm.
because you won't get on the mic.
Right.
Can you talk us through?
Yeah.
You know, mics are very personal to me,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And they're sort of intimate, you know. And can you just talk us through how we might communicate?
Sure.
Especially to either in the classroom for
Mm-hmm.
us or with the person that you're like that's coming to speak.
Yeah.
About how you recommend their proximity to the mic for both, not just for
Yeah.
audio, but even the quality of the sound.
Absolutely,
Right?
because much
You know.
like, computer programming, if you put trash in, you're going to get trash out. You put good stuff in, you get good stuff out, right? Kind of like our bodies, you're supposed to put the good stuff in. I don't always do that. But anyway, yeah, so let's start with the handheld here. What I tell people that aren't used to using this, so let's just say one of the pastors that isn't normally on stage, but you're having a conference, and he's like, I'll introduce people, right? So he's up there like this talking. He's trying to land a plane or something with the microphone, right? I don't know what he's trying to do, but that's a no-no. So tell him, don't wave it like the guy on the runway, right? Don't hold it down here. Your belly button doesn't make any noise unless you're hungry. Then we'll hear it, right? You're not miking the belly button, right? Not out here because it's not right. Handheld mic, I don't care if it's wired or wireless, you tell them 3 fingers. All right, that's where you need it. You don't need it like this because that's probably going to distort. 3 fingers. That's my rule. And sometimes it's really hard to get people to do that, especially people that aren't used to it, right? But there are, big church pastors. You guys familiar with Stephen Furtick? Mm-hmm. He uses a handheld, never a head mic. He just likes that feel of it. When he gets going a little bit, a little charismatic, if you will, a head mic might distort if you're not really on it. These will distort a lot less if you have somebody that's really getting after it. But 3 fingers, okay? If it is a head-worn mic, should come over the ear. There's a lot of different choices out there. There's Countryman, there's DPA, a lot of different choices depending on what your budget is. It should come over the ear, and then the microphone should sit right here. Don't touch the face, because a lot of times guys, even the stubble there, that mic will rub against it, and there's nothing you can do because you placed the mic for them, right? Okay? Lapel mics are still great. People still use them. Let me back up. So the wireless mic, whether it's lapel or here, is going to go to a box, which becomes your wireless mic, and it's going to go to the box with the antennas. That's how wireless mics work for singers, pastors, drummers, whatever. So I like it like right here, but not, kind of the corner of the mouth. And the nice thing about the head-borne mics is it follows the head. A lapel mic is great, but sometimes you get the raceway feel. And that's just the best way, because that mic doesn't move. That mic's right there on your chest. It still serves a great purpose, but you kind of tell your person speaking, hey, don't turn your head as much if you can. And then you just do the best job you can, because you can't walk up on stage and make changes. Maybe you could. Not in any church I've been a part of a staff, but you just do your best, because we're there to serve God, right? And God doesn't expect perfection. If somebody really comes after you about it, talk to them. If you get an anonymous email, I can't do anything with that. I can pray for that person, but if somebody sends you an email, they sign it, or they leave their name and a message, always talk it through with them. Find out, what was it? Because maybe you didn't hear it, They're always going to want to be right. They're not always right. But take it what it is. If people want to talk to you, whether it's, hey, you're doing a great job, or if they're critical, especially if they're critical, because it just fuels their fire. They get more and more angry. But anonymous ones, there's just not much you can do with that. So, does that answer your question on mic placement?
Yeah, I just think that so much preparation goes into speaking
Mm-hmm.
and preaching. And I mean, it concerns me. This is why we need these kinds of trainings.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
it's apparently not obvious.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think a lot of times what happens is, folks like you or volunteers are kind of said, well, I need you to run sound. But what does that mean to you? What does that mean? Well, I'm just the volume guy, right? Well, it's so much more than that, because there's equalization, which basically changes the highs, the mids, and lows, bass and treble. But I think that's probably what the issue is. And I used to do more in-church training. And the hard part there is that a lot of times people think they know everything. But training is the best way. These days, as my dad calls it, the YouTube. There's so much out there that you can do. Like if you wanted to learn to mix on that board, you just go to Allen and Heath at Avantis Solo. So many videos, from how to turn it on to programming it. And so there's so much out there. And then some of the resources, I'll just give them to you now. Sweetwater.com. You guys familiar with that? I see some heads shaking. They're great. Get a good rep. The rep I use is Dave Brow. If you have your own rep, awesome. Get to know them. Their job is to help you get the right gear. And a lot of times when you click on, say I'm buying a new mixer like the one back there, they will have different videos on that page. Like it'll be like the people that built it, like, hey, welcome, this is the board, this is why we did this. And so videos on the websites. And then the other site is called fullcompass.com. So if you write those down, those are great. You can Google it, but those are two reputable companies that I've used for a long time. I love Sweetwater because it's close, but if I was a distance away, like the gentleman from Ohio here, I guess you're all three from Ohio, right? They get it in the mail, and they used to. I don't know if they still do. Y'all get a little candy in the box. They've done that forever. I don't know if Chuck, the guy that started it all, came up with that. But yeah, fullcompass.com and sweetwater.com. You're going to find their prices almost identical. I know that they watch them, and even some of the stuff you can get off of Amazon. Amazon's got some good stuff too. Got some bad stuff. A lot of the prices seem to line up. So they're kind of watching each other. Drum mics. A lot of different ways to mic a drum, and I want to speed up a little bit because it's after 6:15. Again, I have nowhere to go. I just don't want to hold you guys up. So we get to 6:30 if you need to leave or whatever, or you've heard enough of my voice, then take off. You can just take two mics and do a general capture of your drums, up top. But in a bigger setting, like in a larger church, like Granger Community Church where we go, we mic every single piece. So we'll have an SM57 on the top of the snare, one under the snare. One's for the crack, one's for the snare, the feel of the snare. And then each tom mic will have a mic on it. And again, this is like bigger stuff, but when you're in that situation, if you ever find yourself, you're going to mic each piece individually. And that translates to channels on the board. So for miking the drums at a larger setting, you may have 15, 16 channels that are just the drums. But then you can control each piece individually. So, yeah. Mixers. Did I see a question? When I came to Grace, you guys know McLean Hall? Have you ever seen McLean Hall, the basement? Used to be turned the other way. Trent probably doesn't even know this. Where there's an alcove, when you walk in from the Jefferson School side, there's an alcove. That was the stage. Concrete floor, green wooden pews. They were green, kind of with like some black stripes in it. 1988, that's when I came to college, right? This is what we were using, something similar to this. So you can see that soundboards have come a long way. You know what? I get two inputs. So one microphone and one maybe some music, I don't know. And then you get your EQ, you got bass and treble, that's it, And then the other thing you can do with mixers is you can get a powered mixer. This has your channels, but then also has your amplifier built into it. So you can go from this right to a set of speakers, you're done. So those are great to use. And then of course this is an analog one that a lot of you have something similar to that, right? Every channel has, knobs. I tell people just learn one channel. When I was teaching in more in churches, I would find out what board they have, and I'd get some poster board, and I'd lay it over that. And then I'd just cut out one channel, right, before class. And then they would come in, and they'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, you only have to learn this. Because if you ship 40 channel board, learn one channel, you can run all 40 of them if you need to. That makes sense? Oh. And then this is a picture of an older Allen and Heath digital console. This one was actually in here, and then a year or so went to the Advantis Solo. So, any questions? What we gone over? I know it was a lot, drinking from a fire hose, but I hope it's helpful. Questions in general, like, hey, I've got this situation, or I can't get this to sound right. Any questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hate to have done that, just.
No, that's all right.
So, one question about this, and then I've got a problem, a sound problem.
Yeah.
For your money, where is the critical expense best felt? Like, like sometimes, sometimes you'll hear people say, if you have a car and you have a $2,000 head and factory speakers, you got a factory speaker, stereo, right? Where do you say, what's the priority as far as investment in your church sound system or your organization sound system? Where do you put your money first, and what comes after that as far as
Speakers.
Speakers are first?
Speakers. Because you want to think about the size, because speakers can be like a 10-inch cone and a small horn, and they can be 15s, they can be 18s for subs. I like to spend the money at the speaker, first part. Just below that is the soundboard, because those two things work hand in hand. And with the speakers, I also say the amps. I love Crown amps. Crown amps used to be up in Elkhart. You used to be able to go up there and just buy them or take them up there for repair. I don't think they're up there anymore. Speakers, amps, soundboard. That's where I put my money. Because the stage gear works pretty much with whatever microphone you put in it, right? So I've got a $110 microphone, and let's say I've got a $50 cable, and then what do I got? Okay, soundboard, right? Which feeds to the amps and speakers. So that's the level that I put it. Most of these things are inexpensive, and even if you had one of them, then you would have some options on stage. Does that make sense? But yeah, that's where I like to put the money. That's where I start.
Okay, and then
You had a sound problem?
issue. So
Yeah.
I have a massive amount of speaker electrical cords underneath my computer, and I do podcasting there, and so I have a small board, a single XLR mic, and then I have like a video camera, and then just all of the speakers and the hard drives and all this. But that's a pretty big number of cords. And sometimes if I bump something underneath, because I got my tower underneath, if I bump something, I hear something.
Yep.
Like it's
Yeah.
electrical
You've
feedback.
basically broke the shielded connection. You get that electrical whirl. Yeah.
Yeah. So, where is that coming from? I mean, is that sometimes if I move my hand or something, sometimes it'll go away for a second. But
It's all electrical in one sense, and it's just, you're...
too much?
Yeah, just too much. What I try to tell people is keep the electrical cords and any lighting, anything away from the computer, and then start with the PCDI. I think that'll improve your computer quality, and just try that. Isolate what channel is making that noise, because a microphone fix for that is different than a computer fix. So... But ultimately, what you're describing all revolves around electrical. So, cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we're talking about drum mics. So we do mic all of our drums individually.
Yep, cool.
But I do not have two mics on the snare. You highly recommend the second mic.
I do. Because one up top is going to get the crack, and then the one...
Got on that one.
Yeah, and I would put one underneath to get kind of the more snare feel, and then the snare sound, whatever that really is. And then you just mix them accordingly. Usually the one up top's a little bit louder, but our friend, the SM57 right here, he's great for the snare. So Audix makes drum mics. Sennheiser makes drum mics. So whatever you have, if you can get a 57 and get it underneath, you'll love it. It'll sound a lot better. And you can get short version. You can make these work, you know, like that, and then kind of tipping it down. That's fine, but you can also get short versions of these, which are great for when you're miking a, sorry, I'm right in front of the pillar for the video guy. When you're miking guitar amps or like the snare or small things like that, the hi-hat. One thing I was going to mention, a guitar amp, if you're going to mic it, everybody thinks what? Right in the front, right? Anytime, if you get a guitar amp that you have to mic, put it out to the side because there's a cone in there and the sound travels out. So it's much cleaner sound. I remember I wanted to tell you guys that. So, do you guys want to look at the console? We can ask these nice ladies to move. Yeah, they're smiling like I'm getting out of the way. You can look too. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
You
about
sure can.
speakers?
Yeah.
Tell me,
Like sound speakers or stage speakers? Like people on stage?
So a house.
Oh, okay, house speakers.
So we blew our amp,
All right.
and so we're trying to go into this active speakers versus passive and getting a new amp for it. We're a smaller church, probably sit about 200 in the worship center.
Passive's
so-
fine,
Okay.
really. For a setting that size, you can get better speakers passive. Spend your money that way. This is my opinion, okay? There's many opinions out there. We had 3 sound guys up here. We'd all disagree probably. We'd agree on a couple things, but we'd all disagree because you can make it work. But I'd go passive in your situation because active will be a little more expensive. I would go passive and buy better gear for that size setting for 200
and
people.
maybe location for standard
Yeah.
rectangular room with stage, on this end.
Yeah, you don't want to put them too far forward because then you miss the first couple rows and then you have to do what's called front fill, so you don't want to get into that. Off to the sides are great. Always, always, always in front of the stage. Because if those microphones get in front of the speaker, what do we have? Feedback. And feedback feeds off of itself. So if you get a microphone with a little bit of feedback and it gets into any speaker, but let's say, the house system, it's just going to build and build and build a whole feedback loop until you do something about it. So if your stage is here, if I'm the stage, you want them just like right there. And angle matters. It depends on what speakers you're doing and how far of a throw, they call it is, to the back of the room. Just play with it a little bit, put someone on a ladder and hold the speaker and just play some music or you talk or whatever. Just play with the angle a little bit. Most of the times, straight up like this and then kind of turned in will cover a room like that pretty well. It's kind of what they're doing here. What they're doing here, probably walking away from the video guy, this is the top speaker, and that's all you would really need to cover this room. That's what they do. They do performances in here. It's mostly a rehearsal hall. The bottom speaker is the sub. It's got the big 18-inch cone to make the boom boom, if you will, from the bass guitar, the drummer, whatever. There's a lot out there. I would recommend in your setting, they're great for a lot of things. Stay away from Bose. Bose has some stuff. They're just not durable. You'll end up replacing them twice. But JBL is my go-to. Some say that JBL stands for junk but loud, but it does not. JBL, Crown Amps, QSC is another good company. And in your case too, you could do powered speakers if you can get electrical to them pretty close. And that would be a pretty good bet because if you hang those, your amps are inside the speaker. And so all you got to do is then you're cabling to the board and you got sound, Downside is if that speaker goes down, you lose, to get it fixed, you lose the speaker and the amp. Otherwise, if you have them separated, then only one is down. JBL's workhorses, they will do you proud, if you're going to hang them or even if they're on sticks on the sides. But I would say like that, just tipped in just a little bit. That's why whenever we go to church, I drive my wife nuts because I have to have the same seat every time, right? We're in a 2,000 seat auditorium or 1,500, whatever it is. I like that dead center because they have line arrays, these certain speakers like they use in concerts, and it comes right to that center point, and that is the sweet spot. I'm telling you. So I drive her nuts. I'm like, we gotta leave a little bit early. I want to get to that row of that seat. I drive her nuts. So she's used to it. She's been with me for 26 years, and her and my daughter used to go on bigger shows with me occasionally and just watch, But